Hey there, second grade families. This is Mr. Andrews, here to help guide you through guiding your scholars through math stories using arrays. What is an array? An array is simply a grid, a way to represent an organized group of objects in a way that scholars can more count or understand. This is actually used as a way to introduce scholars to concepts of multiplication and division. So today I'm going to guide you through some key concepts that kids need to understand, as well as model a few examples of problems. The first thing I want to point out is some things kids need to understand about a grid, and an array, and some of the vocabulary. Often when we talk about arrays, we're talking about it in relation to columns and rows. Rows being an organization of objects in a straight horizontal line. Columns refers to a straight organization in a vertical line. So in this example of an array that you see on the paper, we see that there's 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. You could also say that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dots in each row. For columns, we could say that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns, and 1, 2, 3, 4 dots in each column. One big idea about an array is that there must be equal amounts of rows, equal amounts in each row and column. There should never be a single dot left anywhere. It should be the same amount of dots in each row or the same amount of dots in each column. Same amount of rows, same amount of columns. All right, so let's now look at some examples of different math stories using an array. To help scholars solve using arrays, I recommend for beginning problems that scholars use counters or some other object that they can lay out and represent these problems. Now, you could use something simple like coins. If you want to make it engaging, use something edible like Skittles or Teddy Grahams, or do like me. I took a piece of paper, I cut them up into small squares, and I drew red circles so they stand out on the paper. So now I'm ready to represent. The first problem that we're going to look at is, for parents, you'd recognize as multiplication problem. Knowing how many groups, how many rows, or how many columns, how many rows, and determining how many are in all. The first problem states, I potted 2 flowers in each pot. I have 4 pots. How many flowers did I pot in all? So it doesn't actually say columns or rows, but we can solve this using columns and rows. So let's say I have 4 pots, so let's make 4 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4. I know I need to have 2 flowers in each pot, so 2, 2, 2, 2. So now I have my 1, 2, 3, 4 pots, and I have 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. My array represents and matches the math story. So now I just know how many flowers are potted. So scholars can simply count them all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Or they might be ready to skip count. 2, 4, 6, 8. Let's take a look at another problem. This next problem, families, you would recognize as being what we call a division problem, where I have a given amount and I now need to break it up into columns or a number of rows. So this problem says, I have 18 baseball cards on a page. They are arranged into 3 equal columns. How many cards are in each column? So I know how many columns I need, and I know how many there are in total. So I need to figure out how many are in each column. So let's start putting our 18 objects or 18 cards into 3 columns. So 1, 2, 3 columns. Now let's just keep adding. And what you'll see here is I simply just keep adding, counting until I get to 18. So 4, 5, 6, adding to each column. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Now, again, as I said before, we always want to make sure that when we're creating an array, that we have the equal amounts in each column, equal amounts in each row. So I still have my 3 columns, very clearly stated. So let's see, do I have the same amount in each column? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I know that in order for there to be 18 cards on a page arranged into 3 rows, there would be 6 cards in each column. Our last question we're going to look at is a bit more open-ended and requires a bit more flexibility in thinking outside the box. It says, I have 12 cookies that can be arranged in rows and columns with the same number in each row and column. How could they be arranged? Well, for those of us that know our multiplication facts as adults, we know that there's more than one way to solve for 12. So, very simply, that could look like making 1, 2, 3 columns and adding on until we get to 12. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We don't expect kids to be able to do this right away, so it's going to have to take them some flexibility, trying new things. It can be kind of frustrating if they're not sure how to start. So just give them prompts. What if we have 1 column? What if we have 2 columns? What if we have 3 columns? What if we have 4 rows? So in this example, we have 3 columns, 4 rows. We all very well know that it could also be 4 columns and 3 rows, or being flexible thinkers, we could do 6 columns and 2 rows, or 2 columns and 6 rows. Either way, it still is a proper array because it's the same amount in each column, it's the same amount in each row, so therefore it's all equal. So families, I hope this has been helpful in understanding how to help your scholars with solving math stories using arrays. Remember, the key things we want to remember is that anytime we're creating an array, it's the exact same amount in each row and the exact same amount in each column in order for an array to be correct. Every day you'll see with each math story assignment there is a parent guide that gives you examples of how to represent each of the math stories, including pictures of what the object, using objects, what that could look like, how scholars might organize using groups, as well as how scholars might organize using formulas and solve using a formula. So check that out first, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to any of your teachers. Thanks.